Hi, I'm Julie, and I'm going to be your teacher guide through this bracelet class, the Shrinkets bracelet class that I call Circling the Mist. The first thing we're going to do is go through what's in your kit and then what you need to supply. This is our bracelet. It's very comfortable and easy to wear. So the first thing in our kit is the taupe Shrinket shape, and these are misted with an opulent glitter. I use Krylon, opal, shimmer, and this is the mist, not the blast. When you buy my taupe set online, 3 of the sheets come without a glitter on them. The other 2 that I sell in my pack have gold and silver, which are lovely too, but on this class I wanted to use the opal, so I misted all of your pieces and pre-cut them. I'm not going to be including a template with this because it's easy to make one if you want it for future. You just take a pencil, trace it around it, and stick it in your packet. And I used the EK Success brand slim line 2 1/4 inch punch for this, and then you would follow that directions, tracing it on it. So that's about the shapes. This is the shimmer I used. You just swipe over it once, about 12 inches apart. 12 inches away. And this is the EK Success punch that I love. The whale punches that have just a handle here, never ever buy those. Only buy them if they have in here a double punch, because this won't break and it's strong enough to go through. Now, that's about the pre-cuts. Now let's go through the rest of things. You have 3 colors of inks that we'll be using, and daubers to go with those. You'll have a bag of your seed beads and sequins and other beads that are used in this, and some stencils. Every kit will have something different in them, and if you have your own stencils, go ahead and use them. I'm just going to be giving you 2. And then the bracelet blank. Now what you need to supply is your heat gun. 320 watt craft heat gun is my favorite. The green fluted spacer bead mold. Something to cut your fire line with. Any fire line will work on this. I'm going to be using a 4-pound, and this is the crystal color. So, use a color that's compatible with your beads. One of the whites or crystal or whatever. 4-pound is sufficient. 6-pound is standard, so use that if you have to. You could even use 8 if you wanted. Overkill. Then a beading needle. Those are the things you need to supply. And I think that's it. Oh, I forgot to say that some glue will come. The E6000 glue will come in your kit. So I think I've covered it. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is color our beads. So we're ready to start coloring, and the colors I'm going to be using is the Archival Ranger brand. We're using Viridian, French Ultramarine, and Violet. And these are your little pieces, and when you're done with them, go ahead and wrap them back up in your tape to seal them, put them in your bag, because you will, this is plenty in here. You won't even use hardly any of this. So we've got our little designs, and I also have my alcohol for wiping off my fingers with a wet one handy. I'm going to be probably doing 2 that are purpley, 2 that are blue, and 2 that are green. And then varying, I'm just going to use these 2 stamps because as you can see, I mean stencils, as you can see, it really doesn't show that much because it gives a soft illusion back there. And so a huge variety of stencils isn't going to play big into this design. And you can also do this or do this on your piece, and I will be showing you how. So I'm going to do my first 2 in purple, in the purple. I'm going to use one of my old daubers. The daubers, I just wash out with warm water when I'm done with them and let them dry. So this one, now definitely gonna take a lot of that color out, down to the point that it's just pale. Okay, and then always blot to get any excess ink off. So then I'm going to wipe this off. I have with the wet ones, they're great for inks, and you know, you can just use a rag also with alcohol on it. Okay, so next, got enough ink on that. I'm going over to this one. Mainly concentrating on the perimeter because I'm not going to see much of the center of this right in here. Okay, now I'm going to wipe that off. And you see how very little of the ink we use. So those are ready. And I'm going to my green. And this doesn't have anything on it, it's just stained. Now what I wanted to show you is I will just use my perimeter out here. Get a lot of that off. I'm doing is I'm just coming in here one stencil can go a long way using portions of it. there, and then dauber. So I'm just going to show you the difference. Same stencil, different design. So getting some mileage out of that stencil. And your stencils will be different. I'm not putting exactly the same thing in everybody's kit. So one more green. And I'm just gonna do another overall pattern with this. Or I could, you know, I could come out here. Let's do this. Should be interesting. Not sure I got enough of that on there, so I'm coming in with a little bit more design. Where I see it needs it. And there, we created a little bit of a different look. And I'll be adding contrasting colors to the borders. I'm not going overkill on my color and pattern on these because I don't want. I'm keeping it really simple because I don't want it to fight with my beads. I'm looking for very subtle misted color on this. Okay, now I'm going in for the ultramarine, and I'm really getting a lot off of that. Way down. And just gonna go overall on this. And then wipe off. I think I might have to ink up again on that. To move it over, it's on a uneven surface with my papers. So the inks will lay over the glitter and it won't show through. So the glitter will only be coming where I don't have ink. Now, those are my blues. These are my greens, and what I'm gonna do is do my edges with blue on the green. You can pick whatever you want. As I said, this is very subtle. And when the shrink plastic shrinks down, it will, you can see the shadow that created once I put it down. This color will intensify 50%. So what appears subtle will be much stronger when it shrinks down. There was an ombre set by Hero Arts. It was called Meadow, I think. And I loved the color trio that came in, but they discontinued it. Bummer. So we're done with the blue. Go back to my purple. And I'm going to be putting it on the blue. You can see my daubers at the end of its life. And then I will blot all of these, even though it looks like there's very little pigment on them. It's just a nice habit to get into. So you're seeing where we're going with this. Okay, so we've used the blue edging, the purple edging, and now we've got left the green edging. See how much green I have left on that. Maybe just enough, because I want this subtle. There we go. So our coloring is done, and next we're going to be shrinking. So what's going to happen when we shrink is we'll put this on there and we'll shrink it, and then we're going to have to shift it because we've got 6 valleys in the mold, and we have 6 holes. And we want to, as best we can, line our holes up with our valleys. Now we will miss. No worries. But you will come close. We're going to try our best. Okay? So that's our goal. But no worries if it's not perfect, because shifting happens, and when you, the amount that each person presses their shrink plastic, there's a lot of variables here, but we will, just before we place the top on it while it's still warm, we will shift the holes into the valleys. So here we go, and I hold the heat gun right at the top of the distance-wise, my glide pin, the metal's called the glide pin, and then I'm going around the perimeter mainly, keeping the heat outside. They're done moving on its own accord. I'm going to line my holes up, place my, this is the doming top onto it, press lightly and count to 5. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. There. Now, do you see? I mean, I see it really well. I want you to see the glitter on this and how subtle our color is. And this is what we want. This will be a really pretty piece. I'm gonna do one of each color and then the rest of them off camera. So here, what I'm doing now is the blue and purple. got a little stubborn area, just come over here and hit it. Stopped moving on its own accord. I'm going to line it up, bring my top down on it, hold it, count to 5. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Lovely, lovely color, soft hint around the bottom, glitter. So then we're going for the green and blue. Done moving on its own accord. Shrinking, lining it up, coming down, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. So I have my 3 color fields. They're going to be different enough, and then we have purples and things like that that are going into our beads to bring in different colors, and this is going to be lovely. The taupe is very sophisticated. It gives things a really sophisticated look. Takes away that candy look and little girl look from pastels. So I'm going to be doing these off camera, and I will meet you when I'm done. I'm done, and these are my base colors. Happy with them. They're going to be, like I said, beautiful with these colors. And so next step is I'm going to show you how to assemble a bead. That's a bead. So here I am. I'm going to pick one. I cut about 3 feet of thread and put it on my needle. Now, I'm gonna pull these little guys out. I do believe I've probably given you more choices than you need. So you're gonna go through each one. I want each one to be different. So what I'm going to have you do is select the colors that you want for this bead, and then we'll go through each one and select the colors. So I'm ready to start my first bead, and I've made my selection of frosted beads in 15s, in 11s, a tiny seed bead that's going to be used on each one. This combo is going to be used on each bead of a fire polished and a tiny 15. Then for this one, each center bead is unique on our beads, and I've selected this, and I'm going to be using sequins on this. And then I've pulled out, where did it go? It flipped over here. I will have you, I don't think you're going to need any more than about 2 feet of thread. And I don't recommend 8-pound because we have to get all the way through here. And this isn't a piece where you're wearing it around the neck and somebody's going to grab it or it's going to get caught on something. It's a construction piece and it's not really elaborate. So I'm choosing 4, which is a nice size. 6 would probably work for this. 2 also, but I like 4 for this project. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and this is such an easy project, I'm going to come on and I'm going to tie several knots around. Oh, I threaded it on my needle, and I think I usually use a 10 needle. So I'm putting, this is the back side starter stopper bead, okay? And I left enough, not very much, disaster, leave more than I did because you're going to be tying a knot on this. So give yourself a 2-inch tail. I did not do so. Give yourself a 2-inch tail there. Now come up through here, come add the center bead, and I'm choosing a little crystal on that. And then I'm going to add 7 of these guys. So let's see, 7 times 6 is 42, I think. And I'm coming down here, and I'm now adding a sequin that cups towards my fingers. And I'm coming down through a hole. Lots of loosey-goosey, coming down through a hole, pulling tight, coming up through the center, pulling tight. Okay, adding 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a sequin that cups towards my fingers, and coming down through the next hole, pulling tight, coming up through the center. I don't bridge across. It's really tempting to bridge across like this, but that's not gonna, this is better. This is less loosey-goosey, and then the thread won't show when we assemble. Meaning putting it on our bezel. Whoops. Oh yeah, I love it when that happens. Down through here. And my next hole, I'm going to show you something, and this may happen to you if there is a small tear anywhere, like right here, that happens to be at the wrong spot. Usually this fuses, but if it happens to be at the wrong spot, you will get, and I will show you in a minute, pull tight. I'm going to put 7 on. You can have a breakthrough right here. Don't worry on a piece like this. Why? The thread would go through that if the friction wasn't in this direction. So that's just, don't worry. Okay, once I get that in and the friction's happened, that's not a worry. Friction meaning it's pulled towards the center. There. Come up through my center. My spokes are looking nice and tight, feeling nice and tight, and that's the repetitive pattern that happens here. And that's why I choose to create that spoke pattern. I'm coming up all the way back through my finish for my final. These are nice and tight, and I'm coming on with my fire polished, and then this little contrasting 15 iridescent. I will bypass the 15 and come down through the fire polish, down through the back side, pull tight, I pulled so tight that I lost my thread, which, you know what? Oh wait, yeah, I want to rethread it. I want to put it on the needle. And then here's my tail. Gonna get my tail available because it got caught up in the spokes. And I'm coming through the green stopper bead. Okay, I can come through there several times. And then I can tie a knot. And I'm gonna tie a surgeon's knot on this. Okay, so this is why I wanted you to have 2 inches. I've got 1 inch. That's a little tight. Okay, I crossed it over and did it, I think, I don't know what that's called, granny square. I have no idea the names of knots. Like a shoelace knot. And then I pull that in. So quick brown fox goes around the hole several times. Okay, so I'm crossing my lines, going under with my tail, under with my tail again, tight, and then one more time. If I had 2 inches like I told you to have, I would be in better shape. What is it called? Requires nimble fingers. This is good for me. There we go. Now, I'm gonna cut my lines. And we have our first bead done. And they're very sweet. They're very sweet. So you can see why I wanted the background stenciling to be very light, because there's a lot going on here. Okay, I'm going to select my next selection and go on to the next one. So now I'm ready to show you another design, and I've threaded my needle and I've got my stopper bead tied off on this, and I'm ready to go. Coming up through here, adding my large bead on, and then I'm going to be adding little feet, I call them, to the base of the seed bead spokes. So I'm only going to thread on 6 of these beads. 4, 5, 6, and then a stopper bead, a little base foot bead. This on the other one I had done sequins. On this one I'm putting this little stopper, this, calling it a stopper bead, a little foot bead. So I'm going 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this purple coming up through the center. And pulling tight so that my spokes aren't loose. Pulling tight. Coming up through the center, pulling tight. pulling tight. Coming down, coming up through the center, pulling tight. It's a little hard to grab. Okay. Coming down. Pulling tight. Coming up back through. And to add a little bit of fun, I'm going to put a sequin on that. There, the purple, my stopper bead, bypass my stopper bead, come down through the purple, down through the sequin, down through the center, all the way out the back, unless your needle comes undone and then you rethread. Bypass the little stopper bead, come back through the back, and then you can go through this little back bead a couple of times and do your surgeon's knot, which is a loop around and around, pull tight, a loop around and around, pull tight, and one more time, around and around, and pull tight and cut off. These remind me of little cakes. I don't know, little cupcakes. So cute. Okay. So on this one here, I'm not using a sequin or a little larger bead here. So I've chosen to use 8 beads along this stack. So whatever you make your selection here, depending on how high it is, you will want to adjust accordingly. I did use the large sequin here, a donut bead, and a rhinestone. So just those little additions of a sequin can raise that just a tiny bit, or a sequin here can raise it just a bit. So by not using a sequin here, I had to add, and then on this one here, when I added a foot bead, I had to subtract. So this one here, I was going to use 8 and I used 7. So adjust those seed beads, they'll be enough in your kit. So now we're done with all 6, and I'm going to bring each one in for a look. Here's the one where we did the little stopper beads, and then I added a sequin. So you can pick and choose how many beads that you think you should use on your spokes. This one here, I added sequins, and those were the choices I made. Sequins again, added a sequin here, and it rose higher, so that sequin was nice because you can see how it nestles in there. This one here, feet, little sequins. Here, nothing at all, but a really nice look, meaning nothing down here, but a nice look to give it variety. And the same with this one here. Just larger beads down here. So each one's different, and I'm going to separate this out to ones that have sequins down here, because I made 3 of those, and ones that don't. And I'm going to lay out the colors, meaning that I'll put the sequins probably every other one, and then go from there. Now there I see, you know, I'm not seeing, so I've got sequin, 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 and no sequin. So I've got a nice balance and harmony, and purple and green, kind of a different color of green and purple. So this just automatically, if I put this in my little easy chain bezel thing, they're just gonna look great. Any pattern you did, even if you didn't think about it, I think will look great. Now we're gonna take the E6000 and we're gonna put a substantial amount in each bezel cup. Okay, because that's how E6000 works. It's not like super glue where it's just a little bit. E6000 works like caulk. It works by filling gaps. And it's really strong. So I'm also going to put, when I put this down to help them adhere to each other, I'm going to put a little dab right there. And then I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm going to let this dry. Now, right here are my links, so I'm going to make sure that that's where my bead is cupping up. Pull this like so, because what you can't do is flip over and see if you've got these centered. So because E6000 will cure to be able to cure to where it's starting to hard in about 10 minutes, where if I move it, it won't slip and slide. I can come back and check it and flip it over to see that they're centered, and then move them accordingly, and then let it totally cure. So I'm going to be letting that do exactly that, and I'll come back in about 15 minutes, flip it over and look at the back side to make sure that each bezel is centered. Each bead is centered on the bezel. So I've let this dry, and I can flip it over and see how well, and see how it's still movable, but but they're not like sliding totally off. So I'm centering them, and then I'm just gonna bring it back over, check each one, and bring it back over, and then let it totally dry. Cure. I like to let the E6000 cure for at least 12 hours. So there's a little string on there I have to get off. So there's our piece, and I hope you enjoyed the class. Thank you very much.